Hi there, my name is Carrow Brown. I am an urban fantasy author, and this video is what happens when you don't make sure that your audio device is connected when you do a tarot card review. The other day I did a review for the Cosmo deck and it was pretty lengthy, and I went to go check the footage and guess what? There's no audio, like none. So what we're going to do today is do something different today. Instead of me doing a review of a deck so I can buy more decks in accordance with the agreement that I have with my spouse, I'm actually going to give you guys a deck tour of the decks that I use frequently. Now, these are not all the decks that I have because I don't actually use them all. Like, some of them are kind of like a buy, not really for me, and then I put them away. And some of them I actually end up giving away. Like, I'm going to take one and I'm going to pass it off to somebody this weekend because it's just not a deck for me, but I will actually take the time to record it. But today is not that day. So this camera and this mic are going to travel just a little tiny bit so that way I can show you guys kind of like an overview of my decks that I frequently use. And I'll explain about like what I use them for and how often I use them and all that other stuff. And for those of you who are kind of like, you have a use for every deck, I do. Part of what happens is that when you get a new deck, you do like a deck interview, and I'll leave like a spread down below that you can try out with one of your decks. And usually the spread will actually tell you like what the intended use of the deck is for, and I've never actually seen that not work as it should. So, but anyway, enough of that. I'm gonna figure this out. Okay, so that actually worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. So we'll go ahead and I guess we'll start with the box that's closest to me, which is this one right here. So inside of this box, and by the way, this box was a gift from Amy Nobody, as she likes to be called, but I like to call her Amy Awesome Buddy. But so in this box is actually my last unicorn deck, and this is the one that I use pretty frequently. In fact, you can kind of see some of these cards are right here on the wall. This is my storytelling deck, so anytime I might be stuck in a story or trying to plot out what my story needs to be doing next, I actually pull this deck out. And it's got a lot of different scenes from the movie in here, and very good quality cards, very good imagery. I'm absolutely in love with it, and I use it for pretty much all my story related things. And when I'm stuck, it's pretty good about telling me where I'm stuck at. So really like this deck. It's pretty much my favorite deck of all time. So we'll just go ahead and move that over. So the next one is going to be this one. Now this is not your typical tarot deck. In fact, it's not actually even a tarot deck. They're tarot dice, right? I saw this and I was totally enamored with the idea of having tarot dice, and I've only actually used these once. If you decide to get these, they actually do come with a mat that you can kind of do the placement on, but the readings with them are really weird. So this is really more of a novelty item for me than anything else. So let me move this over. So this next one actually came from Writing Wife, and this deck is actually called Celtic, the Branches of the Celtic Tarot. And I like it a lot, but it's not a deck that I would actually take out into public very often, because if there's one thing I've learned about Celtic decks is that they like to represent fertility with certain graphic things, so I don't take it out in public very much. But this is my friendship deck. If I have a question or a concern about a friend, this is the deck that I'm actually going to go and use for that. So I really like it. It's got good quality cards. They're pretty flexible, and they usually stand up to my handling pretty well. So my next deck is actually the Arcana deck, and this is actually just a playing card set with tarot cards that I put in it. I already did a review for this. It's very beautiful. I like it a lot, but it's not new person friendly. If I am going with a client that I've known for a while, I usually take this deck because it's easy to put in my bag and doesn't take up a lot of room. I don't have to worry about them getting mishandled. If there's one thing I've learned about doing readings for people, it's like sometimes they're a lot more brutal with your cards than you are. So this one is usually pretty good about it, but it's not new person friendly. So that's usually the one downside to having this deck. But of all the ones that I have, this is probably my second favorite one. So this deck, I actually don't know the name of it. It was a gift from my friend Jessica. She gave it to me for my birthday. And it's a little different than my other decks because it's actually got like kind of manipulated photo images instead of like actual drawings. So that kind of throws me a little bit for a loop. Some of these kind of look like poser images, and that's nothing against the art. But I used to actually use this for my friendship deck as well, but it's kind of moved into like a social circle thing. Like if I have a social question, you know, about like I don't know how to interact with this group of people, this is kind of the deck that I use for that. So it's not like this one where I use for individual people questions. This is more like for a group of people. So this is usually how I know if I want to interact with certain individuals or not. So this next deck is actually, it's a favorite. Everybody loves this deck. This is the Shadowscape deck. It's very beautiful. It's all watercolored. And I think what I really love about this deck the most isn't so much the art, but it's the story behind it. The creator of this deck used to work in like information, she basically worked in like an information inputting thing, if I'm getting that right, and some of you who might know the story better can fact check me on that, but she would basically work all day and then come home and like watercolor these until like 1 or 3 a.m. in the morning sometimes, and I absolutely love them. Like, I keep meaning to get posters of some of these and put them up in my office. I've not met anybody who hasn't liked them or anything like that, but they're beautiful, and these are usually the ones that I actually have up here on the board because they're more aesthetic to me, but this is also a deck that I typically only use for storytelling purposes, because if I try to use them for anything else, it just doesn't work. I get confused, and then I end up learning about like the life story of the person I'm talking about instead of trying to settle like the dilemma that they're in. So anyway, so it's another storytelling deck for me. So this next deck is actually the Druidcraft Tarot deck, and this is the deck that I only pull out when I have really big and serious questions that I need a lot more in-depth answers for, because there's a lot of symbolism that is in here. Now, one thing I will say if you decide to get this is that the card quality is absolute garbage, and I'm not trying to insult the creators of this card or anything else like that, but y'all went cheap on the card stock and it shows. Okay, just saying. But because of that, I don't use this deck very often because it gets scuffed really easily, and that's not really a thing that I want for my cards. But this is honestly like my big answer deck. If I've got a big problem and I don't know how to do it, this is honestly the deck that I pull out right away and I take a look at. Now, when I want to reiterate a big problem, not like a little tiny like social problem or anything like that. Like, this is something that's like really big and it's going to impact my life kind of stuff. So this is the deck that I pull for myself for those things, and sometimes for other people. It really kind of depends. Like I had a friend that didn't know if they should move or not to another country, so when they reached out to me and said, I need clarification, can you pull the cards out, this was the deck that I ended up pulling. So this next deck is actually the deck that I was reviewing for you guys, and it doesn't surprise me that I had tech issues with this deck because this is actually Amy's deck that she likes to use. So go figure that the gremlins would like pounce through that. But this is actually the Cosmos Oracle deck. So these are actually the Cosmos cards, which are not what I'm looking for. So we're just going to file those out right now. And those are also Cosmos. Get out. More Cosmos. Alright, so it comes with an Oracle and a Tarot set as well. And let's see. So I don't use this deck very often, and the reason I don't use it very often, which I tried to explain in the video that I tried to record and it didn't happen, is that every card in this has a different artist. Every card has a different artist that does the art, and it also has a star constellation that is on it too. So there you go. You guys can kind of see it with the gold foil there. So there's that, and as you can tell, like, some of these art styles are very different. And so the reason I don't use it very often is because when I pick up a deck of cards, I usually try to feel the intent of the artist right away, so that way I can kind of understand the feeling of the cards more. But there are 78 artists, 78 cards, and I don't have a feeling for very many of them. Now, they're not too bad, and like if you ask me if they're new person friendly, it's hard for me to answer that because they do have the meanings right here. The book is very clear and all that stuff, but I think the only time I've only used this deck maybe 3 times, and it's usually been in like a crisis. Like it's kind of like my last resort. Like when the Druidcraft deck doesn't cut it, I have to go and grab this, and then I have to go and like consult with Amy because even though the deck and the companion book are really clear, I still struggle with trying to understand these cards, and her relationship with them is way better than mine. So yeah, this is my crisis deck. Maybe I should keep this out. So anyway, you guys can look forward to me redoing that interview later. Freaking stubborn cards. I see through you, trying to make me pay extra attention to you. Seriously, such divas. Alright, so this next deck is actually going to be the Neon Moon deck. I got this from Etsy, and the reason I got it is because I was actually using it as a storyboard on a project that I was working on with Amy. Amy keeps popping up a lot in this video. I'm not very surprised right now. But so this was something that I got in conjunction with a project that she and I were doing together, and it was like a story that we were kind of brainstorming through, and we were using these cards as like the props for some of the stuff that was going on in the story. and it was just a lot of fun to incorporate the imagery that's in these cards into the writing. We haven't finished it yet, you know, life happened and we weren't able to get back to it, but if you are interested in it, because I don't think I've posted the review for this yet, it does come in a little tin like so, and it's very travel friendly, and highly recommend if you are okay with working with like cyberpunk settings in your cards. So this next one, you guys usually see me use a lot in my videos, and this is Revelations. Absolutely love Revelations. I use it for pretty much general purposes, mostly with new clients that I may have that haven't had a tarot reading before. And the reason I do that is because it's got the meaning on here, upright and inverse. So when I have to explain things, it's really easy for me to point to like different parts of the symbolism and explain it. So this is definitely a new person friendly deck that I like to use, and I just really love the colors and everything stands out. And what I really love is that every suit does have its own theme. And for those of you who are wondering, this tarot box that it actually I keep in, and I got that also from Etsy, but it comes from Russia. So if you want something from Mother Russia, you must wait for shipping and handling. So that just leaves these two, and I'll go over this one in a minute. I did a kind of like a live opening review reaction to this one, but this is the Light Vision Tarot. This is the 3rd edition. There's been a couple out there, and I really like this. It's definitely got kind of like, I think the thing that kind of throws me off with this deck is that when I use it, I always feel the artist's relationship with these cards very strongly. And it kind of always like makes me shift around in my chair a little bit, because their take on cards is very different than mine. But I only use this, when I did the interview for this deck, it said use me as needed. And so what I've taken that to mean, and it's actually been pretty on point, is that if I get somebody that's like, I need a tarot reading, I will walk into my closet and I open the door, and if my eyes immediately go to this deck, this is the one that I've used. Haven't had any, I have dogs. I haven't had any issues since then, so that's pretty much how that's gone. What I actually really like about about this is that it comes in its own box, and it does also come in its own card holder too. So this card holder is actually big enough to hold the box and everything else. So, but if you are not a fan of keeping it in the container it comes with, this is pretty flexible and it's very protective of your stuff. So there you go. So that brings you to my very last deck, and the moment I got this deck in the mail, it has been my main deck. I've used this every day. I've used it for general questions. I've used it like, it's just my everyday deck. I absolutely love it, and it's the Children of Litha. I'm probably saying it wrong, somebody will correct me in the comments, thank you. But I absolutely love this deck. I already did a review on it if you want my in-depth review, but like I use it like 2 to 3 times a day, honestly, for just about anything from daily readings to like general questions. But I absolutely love the symbolism that's on here. I love how the cards feel in my hands. Now that I've gotten to use it a little bit more, the meanings are a lot more clear. Even these dreadful cups that I hate, we don't do feelings here in Carolyn, but this is just, I'm absolutely in love and infatuated with this deck. It's just absolutely, oh, I love it so much. And again, if you want to see a lot more of the art and in depth, you can find that review on my channel as well. But yeah, this is my everyday use. I should probably start putting it in my purse when I go out deck. So those are pretty much all the decks that I use with frequency. The rest of them kind of sit over there and I don't use them for very much. In fact, to be really honest, unless I have an emotional attachment with them, I feel like I'm going to be passing some of those decks on to other individuals. Like I had one deck that I really liked, but we didn't vibe very well, and I gave it to Writing Wife and she uses it all the time. So while I do like to collect tarot cards, I do like to keep tarot cards that are actually like useful to me. But I think that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's like 8 decks I don't use. And when I do the review for them, it's pretty much when I'm going to release them to someone else. But today is not that day. In fact, actually, you know what? You guys let me know if you're interested, because I have not an actual interest in keeping some of these cards. But if somebody would like to maybe win them in a giveaway, let me know. Or otherwise, I'm just going to wait until I find the right person and just kind of pass them on then. So. But those are all my decks. I'm very curious about what decks that you guys frequently use. Do you have one? Do you have multiple? What kind of uses do you have for each of your decks? And if you got links, let me know. I might check them out and maybe buy a copy of for myself and just continue to expand my collection after I finish recording all the reviews for the decks that I have, because I said I was going to do it and I mean it. I do. But if you're interested in any of the decks that I did showcase today, down in the video description, I do have links to them, so you can go and check them out and see if that's something that you want to add to your own collection. And if so, knock yourself out. I will warn you though, the Cosmos one is a little pricey, and the Last Unicorn one definitely pricey, but it really kind of depends on where your priorities with that are. So but that's going to be me for this video. Thank you for putting up with my last minute recording, and I will talk to y'all again real soon.